Welcome back, and we're back with another interesting conversation. Switching guests to Mazi Ihanyi Boko, is the Executive Director, Center for Memories in Enugu. And we're going to be looking at, first of all, the Center for Memories, and we're today being the first day of August 2025, Friday, the first Friday of the month is something called Nkata Umuibe. It's a gathering of, Igbo people to discuss on issues of Igbo people. And we're going to be shedding more light on that and also on the topic of discussion for today. Good morning and thank you for joining us on the
My
program.
pleasure to be here. Good morning.
All right. So first of all, let's talk about Nkatu Ibe. A lot of people don't know what it is or what it's all about. So shed some light on that.
Thank you for the question. It's very important to start. We've talked about things for the past. This is okay.
Yeah.
But you can't talk about Nkata Umuibe and not talk about one very prominent part of the book, Things Fall Apart. Where Chinua wrote that when we gather under the moonlight, it is not because all of us cannot see the moons from our houses, but it is because it's very good for kinsmen to do so. And again, if you just oppose this with happenings within our society, the decline in values, the cry about political marginalization, all sorts of issues that affect the Igbo, all of these issues gave rise to the birth of Nkata Umuibe, which is designed to be a monthly conversation that brings together the Igbo, from wherever they may be. We call it a monthly feast for Ndi Igbo. We come back and discuss our Igbo, discuss the issues affecting Ndi Igbo, discuss the progress that we should have, and discuss what we need to do, to move forward. Discuss, things happening around the world and how it concerns and affect Ndi Igbo. And also bring in distinguished persons of Igbo descent, origin, who have, shown themselves to be exceptional in different fields of endeavor. Bring them to share the experience with us, and then share recommendations on what we can do to progress in this area, or to make sure that all of us come to terms with this, realization and find a way that we can bring all these things together to happen in Ali Igbo and from the Igbo. That's what Nkata Umuibe, is all about. It started in May 2018 with Professor Chidi in Carlo. We've had the best of the best, and we keep, because Ndi Igbo is not short of
Exactly.
Exceptional individuals. And every first Friday, we always bring our best to come and talk to us.
Exactly. So now this idea of bringing Igbo people together to talk about issues that concern Igbo people, to what end? Is it just, come talk about it and everybody goes home, or are there steps to actually implement things that are being discussed in this?
It's just like the parable of the sower, so some people have, everybody have different roles in life. Some, their role may be to give others the platform, to share. Others will, take, learnings from the program and implementing whatever ways. A lot of things have been given birth to just because of Nkata. And funnily, when we started tracking, some of the impact we recorded in Nkata, it was funny that the first few persons who actually ran with learning from Nkata were not Igbo people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first group of guys we tracked were actually a Yoruba and Kogi, person who developed a toolkit. It was as a result of Dr. Joaba's session where he talked about how we can improve governance in Ali. And they developed a toolkit for tracking governance and government manifestos, across different states of Nigeria. And this they've extracted to other African countries. It was, a birth. It was born from Nkata. There were a lot of things. And when we tracked last, there were two persons who have never missed any edition of Nkata. One was a Yoruba person, and one was an Igbo person. And, every year we keep finding new ways that we can improve what we do at Nkata, how we can better implement. How do we take this to the interland where people do not have access to maybe YouTube, or possibly come and join us physically at the Center for Memories, any other venue of choice that we choose to hold this event. But we have young people like this year, Ford Foundation, supporting us to talk about inclusion in Ali Igbo. and we've spoken about inclusion from different perspectives. We've spoken about gender inclusion. We've talked about inclusion in storytelling narratives, and today we'll be talking about political inclusion. So I mean, we keep inclusion is one subject that you can actually find in every field of endeavor, and everybody will need to talk about to find ways to implement it. The children we are working with have also found different ways to lend their voice, different actions that they've taken to include to talk about inclusion. And we are saving the best for the last, because we open to have a debate among those young people,
Okay.
for them to share what they knew about inclusion, what they have learned through the center, and actions that they're taking to mainstream inclusion within their society.
Exactly. All right. So now let's come down to what the topic of today is. Tell us about it, and how the idea came up, and what we hope to see with the conversation.
I mean, the topic is Igbo Ebezina, reclaiming the Igbo voice in national consciousness, right? So that topic, it came as a result of, I told you that how we've been able to look at inclusion from different perspectives. And then when we look at such thematic area, we look at people who have distinguished themselves in that area of endeavor, and bring them to share their own thoughts, opinion. Because what I didn't mention initially was that one of our aims in Nkata Umuibe is to elevate the thought consciousness of our people. Because most times you cannot implement any change without the idea being fostered among the people. So we've looked around the outcry, which, I mean, they are correct. A lot of people would say we've been marginalized. We are not, included in national conversations. But what do we do about it? Do we keep shouting about it? What do we need to do? Should we be able to lean on the philosophy of the Kenga? The Kenga, which is an Igbo totem, which is embedded in our philosophy. Now, Ebinejisi allows, Ebinejisi a job, Ebinelazo obyogo. And when you see the Kenga, you see the ram horns, in the totem. But we have not been able to lean on this philosophy, on this wisdom, since we've been shouting and screaming and nothing has changed. So do we now, we need to bring in somebody who can speak to this. Now, yes, we are marginalized. Yeah. So what do we do? Do we keep shouting about it? What do we need to do? That idea is what we expect to be shared today by our distinguished speaker, Bedike Martin Iblu, who has remained very vocal about what the Igbo society needs to do to reposition itself, to go back in time to what they were renowned for. Strategy. We're strategic people. And how have we left strategy, and resorted to screaming and shouting, and which we know will never change anything. So we believe that by the end of today's session, a lot of people who participate in this session will have a renewed vigor, a new understanding, to be able to go back to, their different areas of endeavor and strategically plan on how to reverse the position of Ndibo, especially within the national consciousness.
Okay, so I'll still come back to this topic so that you can, throw a bit more light on some certain areas. But I'd also like to know, you've mentioned the center invites prominent guests who have, prominent people rather, who have made impact one way or another. Now, your guest for today, how did you, come about, picking him as the person to do today's conversation?
I mean, I alluded to that maybe. Well, let me emphasize that he's someone who is very vocal. He doesn't shy away from holding this conversation, because again, this one is not a conversation that you could easily see people want to have a take on. But Ebedike is not shy about what he thinks Ndibo needs to do. Is somebody who has been very vocal about where we need to go, what we need to do, and how we need to get there. And we only needed to just amplify the voice. This conversation can happen in different areas and in different ways. And this is one of the ways that this conversation can start. Ebedike is a very good conversation starter. So I know that once he starts this, for the next couple of months, this conversation will continue to happen. Why? it's becoming more relevant because the election is not, very far away.
Mm-hmm.
And as a people, if we choose to align with strategy, we need to have a focus. I do not care about which political party an Igbo person is. I think the Igbo people should be in every political party that exists in Nigeria. But one thing should remain consistent. Our goal should be one and same. What is the Igbo agenda, especially when it comes to Nigerian politics? This is what a lot of people are not talking about. So people are more interested in which political party is in the Igbo's political party. There is no political party written in the Igbo. Every political party is a vehicle, for the attainment of the aspirations of the Igbo. And so it becomes very important that we remove sentiments, remove emotions in dealing with things that strategy can solve for you. And I think there's no other person who can, stir the honestness than Ebubedike Martin Obiora Ilo. And I think if you have not planned to come to the center this evening, we've had about 3 sessions, and I've had like about 2-3 personal sessions with him, and you can literally feel the passion in his voice, and it gives me a renewed sense of purpose that I think this is a message that Ndibo needs to listen to. And I'm very sure that as many as people who get themselves to be part of this event today, they will leave knowing fully well that they've added something new to themselves.
Exactly. Now, speaking of Igbo Ebezina, now how did the Igbo people get to the point where we are now having conversations telling Igbo people to stop, complaining or stop crying or stop, how did we get to this point?
Because it's only a stupid person that does the same thing over and over and over again without getting any result, and is still stuck in their ways. And this has become asymptomatic of Ndigo, right? Because over the years, let's do the count from 99. We've been screaming, we don't have Igbo president. And, people weren't happy that somebody like Alex Ekweme, decided not to, put his head in that particular election. And that went again. And then when he came back to the turn of the South again, it wasn't an Igbo person. It was, somebody else. And that person chose an Igbo name. I don't know why. So, and in other circles, it's been seen as, an Igbo candidate. Go and fight over it, debate over it. But it has Igbo names. So how do you prove that? But again, it's another election year in 2023. It was 2023,
yes.
Yeah. And an Igbo person, came forth, and he wasn't chosen. And so it is enough for people to say, oh, there is a written agenda against the Igbo. It could only be assumptions. But what have we done as a people? Now that we know that, let's even agree that there's a written agenda, what are we doing about it? Would crying and screaming and weeping solve this particular problem? Apparently, it cannot solve it. So what do we need to do? We need to get back to the drawing board. If there's no drawing board, we can go buy one and draw on it. What do we need to draw on it? That's what a Bedike would spot in today's conversation, because because it's very important. Our people were known for strategy, and that was how we achieved a lot of the things we did in the past. I know a lot of things may have distorted that, but it doesn't matter what challenges you must have met on your path, on your journey. What is most important is for you to know where you're coming from, where you are, and where you need to be. We need to realign. That's the prompt. Saying it in prompt and plain terms, we need to realign as a people. I need the because if you don't know, we won't know when it stops.
Yes. All right. Now, of course, a lot of people might not understand the importance of this type of gathering and having this type of conversations. So, for those who don't know or who don't understand, how do you make them understand that it is important to be a part of this conversation, to come and sit down and listen and be a part of it?
Like I mentioned in the preamble, that Yakute Chinochebe's writings in his book in Things Fall Apart. And it's not because everybody cannot see the moon from their homes. We cannot see it. When you look through through your window, you still see the cloud, you still see the moon. But it is very important for all of us to, come together. You bring your own ideas, I bring my own idea. The style of Nkata is very simple. This distinguished person, doesn't even take the toga of Omni West, if you allow me to use that. So what the person is trying to do is to begin to turn our attention towards a certain thought line, right? Because he feels that this is very important and imperative for our people to begin to do. So he would, in 30 minutes or thereabout, share his own ideas and precipitate a conversation. And then the real Nkata happens after his presentation must have been done. And that's when he sits down in a moderated session. And he will have a moderator, reel out, questions stemming from his presentation and what the general perception around his areas of thoughts are. And after the moderator must, have done that, he opens the conversation to the audience. And that's when the real
Nkata.
Nkata happens. And you begin to hear diverse opinions, feelings, emotions, sentiment, and strategy. And it will be wrapped up in such a way that recommendations on the next steps on what we need to do from a public perspective, personal perspective, institutional, state, regional, and national. Because again, from a national perspective, if a people keeps shouting, screaming, weeping about something, and you don't pay heed to that, you don't pay attention to it, it will begin to raise disgruntled elements, animosity, and whatever negative emotions. And if you look at our society today, you could find out that there are a lot of people who do not intend to remain in Nigeria. And their reason could be because of political marginalization. And that's a feedback mechanism if you want to look at it from a national perspective. From a state perspective, what have we really done? Because again, I ask, if we have been very, very intentional in bringing in people who have the intention of our states and our region at heart, the state of our regions and our states will not look the same, because it's not been a Hausa person or Yoruba person that has been the governor in each of the states for the past years since we returned to democracy in '99. So if there are Igbo people, what have they been doing? How have we been ensured? Because again, look at the template that Michael Opara gave to us. One man who does not get any allocation from the federal government was able to administer over a region that today has been separated into 8 states. Just think about it. So it shows how we have allowed retrogression to creep in, how we have declined in terms of values, in terms of quality of people. We are not lacking in terms of quality of leadership. Because if we begin to reel out names of quality leaders that this region has churned out, it is mind-blowing. So how have we fallen so short? This is something that all of us needs to be interested in.
Yes.
And today we think everything is about politics. What about leadership? What about the kind of people we allow to have the trust of, and trust our collective responsibility to? So this is one of the things I also look out for in today's session. And I know that our speaker would definitely deal with this.
Exactly.
And there are a lot of people who will come in. Please, we need your opinion. We need your recommendation. We need your strategy. Because it will be, it was now you call a million or because come today to the Center for Memories by 4 p.m. to join this conversation. Your voice is very important.
Yes, you're so passionate about this, and when you mentioned politics and leadership and the amount of leaders that have been churned out from this region. So I would like to know, in your opinion, would you say that a restructuring of Nigeria would be necessary for reclaiming the Igbo voice?
It depends on what restructuring means to you. Because each time I listen to the argument of restructuring, I think some people do not even understand what they mean by restructuring. For me, this is my own opinion, right? The balkanization of the region is one of the major reasons why we are declining. Today, everybody wants a state. I want that, I want this, I want that. And you keep balkanizing the state. Balkanization does not result to development. We get it twisted most times. So when we mean restructuring, what do we mean? Are we talking about territorial restructuring? Are we talking about economic restructuring? What does restructuring mean? This is a conversation that needs to even happen, because restructuring can mean a lot of things. If you allow me, my own would be, let's go back to regional government, 6 regions, because that's when we can actually pay attention to what is happening within the grassroots. What does development mean to us? Sometimes I think we're just in an unnecessary competition with one another. If you go back to when we had the regional government, the competitions were different. The East were known for one thing. The North, the granite pyramids and all of that, and they were very efficient and effective in the delivery of that. The South, the cocoa was doing very well, and palm oil here in the East, and we were able to build an economy, build institutions, University of Nigeria, and a lot of other things that MI in his, I don't know how to describe that man. He's somebody you look at and then I don't know, because I lack words. And it's a far cry from the kind of leadership we have today. Not in terms of charisma, not in terms of strategy, not in terms of idea, not in terms of implementation. So how do we, it pains me a lot to talk about this, because this is something we try to do at the Center for Memories. We try to document, we try to look back in the past. Because, I mentioned, if we don't know where the rain began to beat us, we don't know when it stops. We need to begin to track where we began to fell off from leadership. Because when you talk about leadership in Alibo, in the East, you definitely see that we were blessed. We had a lot of people who had diverse ideas, who had done different things. The Mbono GKs, the Sam Mbakwe, them. We have a lot. We have a lot of them. You may like some of them, you may not like some of them, but you cannot take away from what they have done. And this is there for everybody to see in history. So we need to go back to the beginning. If we have lost the drawing board, we need to buy a new one and start from there to chart the map for the development of our label. And it's very important to mention that development, politics, which other words do we throw about? Sometimes people want governance. These are different terms. We need to know as a people which ones are we more interested in, and begin to chart a map. Across the world, many people have their own interests. You look at the role of the Jewish people in America, and you see how they've been able. Do you think they don't know what they are doing? They know. It's just a strategy. People map an 100-year strategy for themselves, even something that they will not live to see. But they are going somewhere. They know these things are continuous in nature. And as a people, we need to begin to, do the same for ourselves.
Exactly. All right. So, it's very important that all of us are there today at Center for Memories by 4 p.m. for Nkata Umuibe. And the topic is on Igbo Ebezina, reclaiming the Igbo voice in national conversation. This is going to be a wonderful one. Center for Memories is at number 2 August Street by Umoji Street, Independence Layout, Enugu. And the speaker for today is Ebubedike V. Martin Obiora Ilo, President and CEO, Signature TV. You can watch it live, as we're going to be streaming live on YouTube, and you can also watch it on channel 265 on SLTV. Thank you so much, Mazi Ihanyi Boko, for this wonderful conversation.
I love it every time I'm at Signature.
We love having you here as well. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, we've come to the end of our show this morning. Thank you for starting your day with us and for staying with us. Once again, happy new month. I am Uchenna Chimdi Oluoha. Have a nice day.